What if I told you that every major war in modern history has never really been about spreading freedom or democracy, but has always been the perfect excuse for governments to run massive deficits, print currency out of thin air, and issue debt that future generations will repay through the hidden tax of inflation, while a tiny financial elite quietly gets richer? Yeah, you heard that right. Wars do not liberate, they monetize. And right now in March 2026, with the Iran conflict already burning through $184 billion in projected spending. By September, the same playbook is unfolding faster than ever, turning geopolitical chaos into the greatest wealth transfer mechanism ever invented. If you think your tax dollars and your eroding purchasing power are just unfortunate side effects of defending liberty, then you are about to discover the brutal truth, because today we are ripping open why wars always print money, not freedom, the sarcastic consistency of how governments have used conflict as cover for unlimited spending across centuries, the documented hyperinflation after the French Revolutionary Wars, the explosion of United States debt after World War II, the abandonment of the gold standard after Vietnam, the normalization of quantitative easing after Iraq and Afghanistan, and the way the current Iran war is delivering the latest live demonstration of the oldest financial scam in history. Stick with me until the very last word. Because the verified historical patterns, the mechanics of money creation, the real winners behind the slogans, and the way freedom becomes the marketing label, while money printing becomes the product, will leave you equal parts outraged and armed with the knowledge to see through the next crisis. If you're tired of watching your savings quietly stolen by the hidden costs of endless wars, and you want the intelligent, unfiltered truth about how power really works, hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications so you never miss these deep dives, and drop a comment below telling me whether you believe wars are ever truly about freedom, or if this money printing pattern has you rethinking everything. I read every single comment, and we are building this conversation together as a community that demands the real story behind the patriotic headlines. Welcome to Money's Hidden Past. Rich people lied. We fact-checked. Let us begin with the ironclad mechanism that has repeated for more than 2 centuries, because once you see how wars and money printing are locked in a permanent partnership, the slogans about liberty start sounding like advertising copy for the greatest financial heist in history. Every major conflict forces governments to spend far beyond their current tax revenue on troops, weapons logistics, and reconstruction. Tax increases alone are never enough and politically toxic, so leaders turn to the printing press and debt markets. They issue bonds, borrow from the future, and when that is not enough, they expand the money supply, creating currency out of thin air. This flood of new money chases the same amount of goods and services, driving up prices, which is inflation, the silent tax that erodes your savings without you ever seeing a line item on your tax return. Public trust in paper currency collapses, smart capital flees to hard assets, and the cycle completes itself. The war ends, the debt remains, the inflation lingers, and the financial system that created the money at will emerges stronger than ever. Freedom is the slogan. Money printing is the product. The public always pays the bill. This is not conspiracy. It is documented financial history repeating with mechanical precision, and the current Iran conflict is simply the latest chapter written in the same ink. The pattern first revealed itself in terrifying clarity during the French Revolutionary Wars of the 1790s, when revolutionary France invented the assignats, a form of paper money backed not by gold or silver, but by confiscated church lands and the promise of future tax revenue. To fund endless military campaigns against European coalitions, the French government printed assignats in ever-increasing quantities. What started as a reasonable experiment turned into hyperinflation on steroids. By 1795, prices had risen more than 20,000%. A loaf of bread that cost a few sous in 1790 cost hundreds of livres. Savings vanished overnight, the middle class was wiped out, and the economy collapsed into chaos. The assignats became worthless, forcing Napoleon to later restore a gold-backed currency. The sarcastic lesson here is that the revolution that promised liberty, equality, and fraternity actually delivered the first modern demonstration of how war plus printing equals economic ruin for the people and new opportunities for those who understood the game. The financial system survived, the public did not, and the pattern was born. Fast forward to World War II, and the mechanism scaled up to global proportions, with the United States as the clearest beneficiary. The war cost the United States approximately $4 trillion in today's money. To finance it, the government ran massive deficits, issuing war bonds and allowing the Federal Reserve to expand the money supply dramatically. United States national debt exploded from $43 billion in 1939 to $260 billion by 1945, a 6-fold increase in 6 years. Europe, meanwhile, lay in ruins. Its factories bombed, its gold reserves depleted, and its economies bankrupt. The United States emerged with its industrial base untouched and 2/3 of the world's gold reserves. At the Bretton Woods Conference in 1944, The dollar was crowned the world's new reserve currency, pegged to gold, while every other currency was pegged to the dollar. The old European powers that had dominated global finance for centuries were now taking orders from Washington. The war that destroyed Europe's productive capacity handed America the keys to the entire global monetary system. Inflation in the United States remained contained during the war because of price controls and rationing, but the seeds of future expansion were planted. The real winner was not democracy. It was the financial system that got to create money at will and the public that would later pay through the slow erosion of purchasing power. World War II did not just end fascism, it supercharged the American financial empire through the ultimate printing press moment. The 1960s and 1970s delivered the next chapter, with the Vietnam War as the catalyst. The United States poured hundreds of billions into the conflict while simultaneously funding expansive domestic programs. The Federal Reserve accommodated the spending by keeping interest rates low and expanding the money supply. Deficits ballooned and trust in the dollar crumbled. By 1971, President Richard Nixon was forced to close the gold window, ending the last direct link between the dollar and gold. That single decision unleashed the greatest inflation surge in modern American history. Gold, which had been fixed at $35 per ounce, exploded to $850 by 1980. Consumer prices doubled in a decade. Interest rates hit 19%. The middle class watched its savings lose value, while those who rotated into hard assets and commodities preserved and multiplied their wealth. The sarcastic truth is that the war sold as a fight against communism was actually a massive money printing operation that normalized deficit spending and destroyed the last remnants of sound money. Vietnam did not spread freedom, it spread fiat, and the public paid the hidden tax for decades afterward. The post-September 11th wars in Iraq and Afghanistan took the playbook to trillion-dollar scale and introduced quantitative easing as the new normal. The United States spent more than $2 trillion directly on the conflicts, with total long-term costs, including interest and veterans' care, exceeding $8 trillion according to Brown University estimates. To finance it all, the Federal Reserve first held rates near zero, then after the 2008 financial crisis, which had roots in war-related economic distortions, launched multiple rounds of quantitative easing, literally creating trillions of dollars electronically and purchasing government bonds and mortgage-backed securities. The national debt doubled from $10 trillion in 2008 to $20 trillion by 2017. Inflation remained officially tame because much of the new money flowed into financial assets rather than consumer goods. But the wealth transfer was unmistakable. Asset prices soared, benefiting the already wealthy, while wages stagnated for the average worker. The dollar's reserve status allowed the United States to export its inflation to the rest of the world, but the hidden cost still landed on American households through higher asset prices and slower real growth. The war sold as missions. To spread democracy, instead normalized unlimited money creation and turned the Federal Reserve into the ultimate financier of conflict. Freedom was the slogan, quantitative easing was the product, and the financial system emerged more powerful than ever. Now in March 2026, we are watching the same machine operate at accelerated speed with the Iran conflict. The Pentagon's internal projection already places the cost at $184 billion by September 1st, with daily spending averaging $500 million. Oil prices have spiked more than 10% in days because of disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz. The government is once again opening the spending taps, and the Federal Reserve is signaling it will accommodate whatever fiscal surge is required. Early signs of renewed inflation expectations are appearing, and the same rotation into hard assets is already underway. The pattern is identical. War starts massive deficits, money printing, inflation fears rise, and the financial system that creates the currency at will collects the real profit. The only difference this time is the speed enabled by modern markets and digital money creation. The Iran conflict is not about spreading freedom any more than the previous wars were. It is the latest excuse for unlimited spending and the greatest wealth transfer mechanism ever invented. The public will pay through higher prices, eroded savings, and future taxes, while the system that prints the money grows stronger. The energetic reality that makes this cycle so predictable and so infuriating is the simple fact that governments have no incentive to stop. War provides the perfect political cover for spending that would never be approved in peacetime. Deficits become patriotic debt, becomes someone else's problem, and inflation becomes the hidden tax that requires no vote. The financial system that controls the printing press benefits from every new dollar created because it captures the seigniorage, the profit from issuing currency, and it gains more control over the economy through interest rate policy and asset purchases. The public, meanwhile, absorbs the cost through reduced purchasing power, higher interest rates on mortgages, and the slow transfer of wealth from the many to the few. This is not accidental, it is structural. Wars are the ultimate excuse for unlimited spending, and the greatest wealth transfer mechanism ever invented, because they combine fear, patriotism, and fiscal necessity into one unstoppable force. The broader lesson is as cold as it is consistent. Wars do not spread freedom, they spread fiat money. Every major conflict in modern history has followed the same script, from the assignats of the French Revolutionary Wars to the quantitative easing of the post-September 11th era. The real winner is never the soldiers on the ground or the citizens back home. The real winner is the financial system that gets to create money at will, while the public pays the hidden tax of inflation. Freedom is the slogan. Money printing is the product, and the cycle continues because it works perfectly for those in control. The current Iran conflict is simply delivering the latest proof, and the numbers are already rolling in exactly as they did after every previous war. From the hyperinflation of the 1790s, to the gold standard collapse of the 1970s, to the trillion-dollar deficits of the 21st century, the pattern has never failed. Governments print the rich, rotate the public pays, and the financial system grows more powerful with every conflict. The Iran War of 2026 is not an exception. It is the next verse in the same song. The question is whether you will continue to accept the slogan or finally recognize the product for what it is. History has already written the script. The only variable left is whether you see it in time. If this deep dive into why wars always print money, not freedom, and how the current Iran conflict is repeating the same wealth transfer mechanism fired you up about seeing through the slogans to the real financial game, then do me a favor right now. Smash that like button to let the algorithm know this conversation matters. Share this video with every friend and family member who needs to understand how wars really work, and let us keep exposing what they do not want you to see. I will catch you in the next one, where we break down the next hidden chapter in this timeless cycle. Until then, stay informed, stay skeptical, and remember that when the bombs start falling, the printing presses start rolling. And the ones who understand the difference between the slogan and the product are the only ones who come out ahead.